Beyond Bitcoin Hangouts are meant to give everyone a voice, a chance to speak with others who are passionate advocates for expanding the blockchain's use cases out into the world and beyond. Do you have a crypto community you would like to represent and hold open hangouts for? If so, you might find yourself on the path to owning a stake in Beyond Bitcoin. We are looking for people who care about people who want to bring others together, because crypto communities are people. Beyond Bitcoin is a movement of thinkers and doers in the crypto space. And if you feel you are one of them, reach out to beyondbitcoin@gmail.com for more information on how to debut your community's efforts to reach to the stars and beyond. Welcome everybody to another Beyond Bitcoin Hangout. Today is Friday, October 28th, 2016. Today's Hangout is episode 179, and the current list of guest speakers today are Jonathan Bahai and Michael Maloney from PeerPlays, CM Steem from Gridcoin, Virtual Growth and Psycho Chica from Steemprentice and Steemland, Solomon Attikel from SollarsAndSense. So with that said, we join every week in a way that is low barrier to entry to talk about the projects that individuals are working on in the space. And we have a server that is open 24/7 for anybody who does have a project and wants to run their own hangouts. The Gridcoin community is a great example of this, where they have their own room, they have their own place where they hold hangouts, and they actually distribute Gridcoin tokens, or are planning on doing so, to the attendees of those hangouts. So we're moving in a direction with various people who are moving forward with us and bringing what they want to bring to the table and adding their own value propositions. But all of the projects who are here are adding their own value proposition in terms of the transparency of their projects. Because in the blockchain space, this is kind of the wild, wild west. And a lot of the people who come out saying that they're going to work on a project aren't always intending on building the next best thing, especially when marketing can get them a lot of money and they really have no means by which accountability can be held for the money that they've received in the past. So the people who join these types of hangouts and who cover their own projects, I urge them to utilize the Beyond Bitcoin tag on Steemit and to RSVP to our weekly hangouts, or run their own and contact beyondbitcoin@gmail.com if you would like to have your own room and would like to run your own weekly hangouts. With that said, Jonathan Bahai and Michael Maloney, are you guys here?
I'm here today, Fuzzy. Unfortunately, Michael wasn't able to make it today. So, good day, everybody. My name is Jonathan Bahai. I am the president of Bunker Chain Labs, the company which is heading up the PeerPlays project. Last week, we announced the update of our website. We've made some more updates to it since then. So if you haven't seen it recently, I recommend checking it out, going to www.peerplays.com. Looks really good. We've gotten some great feedback from it. Since then, there's certainly been many more positive sentiments. We've been getting more contacts from people about what's happening with the project, so that's really exciting. In terms of updates, the testnet has been going through a major update recently. Today, later on, I'm just giving you fair warning that we're going to be doing a major update which is going to reset the testnet blockchain. So anybody who set up accounts or inputted your private keys to check your balances, that's all going to disappear as of today. So that's happening later today. And with that update, a couple of good things are going to happen. Number one, we have now included the market balances. So when you go to check your balance, anybody who is involved in the BTS share drop, anyone who had the BitShare share drop, if you want to see how much you're actually going to receive in terms of PeerPlays, the balance that's going to be showing after today's reset is going to be the actual balance you will see when the PeerPlays blockchain launches. We've got we've gotten all the market orders included in this Genesis block, so it's the accurate depiction of the distribution. I'll just say that pending anything else we might find later, just in case we might have missed something. But it should be much more accurate than the previous version, which we put out. There's many more updates in terms of how the tournaments work. They're auto. You'll notice that there are more updates to the GUI in terms of entering tournaments, how tournaments close, joining other tournaments, and right now the logic for the mystery game is good and solid and is now underway with being implemented into its graphical interface. So that is what's happening right now. So with all this I just described, that's all happening later today. So it's just a fair warning that when you go to check out the testnet, you're going to find that if you had an account set up there, it's gone, and it's just a full blockchain reset for this particular update. And that's all the updates I have for today. And unfortunately, I don't have Michael to answer the questions, so I'll be able to field a few questions before I end here.
Sure. I did want to bring up the fact that you guys have a language ambassadors section on your website. I've talked to you guys, we do this every week, and you guys join up to talk a little bit about this, and I haven't heard anything about it. So could you potentially give us like a quick rundown of what that is for, so anybody who might be interested can reach out?
Sure thing. Actually, we do have in the coming weeks, we have Chris Coney, who is our marketing person in PeerPlays. He will be reaching out to people in regards to this language ambassador program more actively. We started this program, we started looking for people earlier on when we first started with the first distribution. And basically the language ambassador program, we designed it so that we could find people who not only knew the language and could translate the documentation, but could act as a gateway so that people in those communities and who speak that language could actually be able to have a conversation with someone who knows PeerPlays and be able to answer, if not technical questions, just whatever other questions they may have. It's really somebody who can connect not just with the written word, but as people. So they're ambassadors, they're representative of PeerPlays. So it's more than just somebody who is looking to translate documents and then just push them out and be done. So it's a little more demanding. It does offer a little more pay as a result, and it's something that we're going to move forward with in the coming round. We haven't really put a lot of attention to it right now, simply because at this stage it doesn't make a lot of sense to have anybody out there when we're right in the midst of the testnet, and really when the questions are going to come is when we get closer to the next upcoming ICO. So in terms of what we're looking for, we are looking for certain languages. We're actually nailing that down right now in terms of which ones we want to start with. We're not looking to do the entire world at this stage. There are only specific markets which really would make sense for us to begin with.
Okay, I just wanted to ask because it's something that there are a lot of people with the block pay. I mean, they filled up those slots pretty quickly and actually had more than enough people for their ambassador programs, and figured that maybe this was something that you guys would like people to start contacting you about. If they are interested in doing that, should they wait for a couple weeks until you announce it then?
If they're interested, it is a good idea to contact us. Certainly, we have some contacts now as a result of us putting out information about the ambassador program back in May. So we have some initial contacts now for some places. We are interested in finding more. We would like to find more contacts. Specifically, off the top of my head, we weren't very successful in finding any contacts in Japan. So if anybody out in Japan is there who could act as ambassador, that'd be great. I think we're still looking for some people in South Korea. So those are the only things off the top of my head I can think of. But yes, if anybody's interested in becoming an ambassador, they could certainly send us our contacts, and we'll pass it on to Chris, so that when the time comes and we have the information put together, you can get all the details on what would be required. It's not something, like I said, to just do a little bit of work, pass it off, get some Bitcoin. It's something that'll be an ongoing process, basically like a job. So we're hoping that we can find the right people to be able to fulfill that role and be good ambassadors for PeerPlays.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Data. Does anybody else here have any questions or comments? I mean, this is obviously here for those who are wanting to participate in these projects to be able to ask questions. So,
is your bunker still a nuclear target?
I hope not. I'm in here right now. No, I don't think it is.
Okay.
Thank
well, when is it going to be time when somebody can actually go in to become a witness? Because this is something that obviously is kind of on my mind a little bit more these days. Do you guys have any idea as far as like the general time period before somebody can become a witness or run to become a witness?
Right now, in terms of a specific time frame, I can't really say anything at this stage. However, we will be announcing prior to the launch of the actual live blockchain the process of becoming a witness, so that people will have time to get familiar with the witness nodes, set up systems, and start vying for votes and being qualified in order to be a witness in the PeerPlays network.
Thanks very much, Data. Once again, if this is the time to ask him if you have any questions or comments. And for anybody who's listening after the fact, this is a great time every week to join up and ask your questions, especially if you are holding PeerPlays tokens.
All right.
I have.
So
go ahead, Fadat.
Hi. Oh, okay. Cool. So, brief little question. Are you going to be changing any of the software interfaces from the Steem or BitShare style, or is that going to remain the same? Speaking about the API directly.
Are you asking in regards to its design, or specifically in regards to the functionality of the API?
Well, I'm actually talking about, they're the same thing, right? The design and functionality of the API. And what I'm asking about specifically is, basically, is it going to output standard JSON? That would be cool. I would appreciate that. Everybody would appreciate that.
I would be surprised. I would be very surprised, Fadat, if they changed the core structure to that level. I mean, JSON's a good interchange format for almost everything, and so I would be shocked if they changed away from that for the API usage.
Well, I didn't mean change away from JSON. I just meant keep it in the structure is bizarre.
Yeah, one thing that I've noticed. One thing I've noticed about the graphene structure is that there's a lot of it's not really well designed from the standpoint that you can make an API call for something and get a result back, and there's many other API calls that are similar to that they could have combined together to have a more unified data structure behind it. But when you're doing things really quickly, you don't have the luxury of always of going back and refactoring your code so that it becomes elegant and consistent across every little piece of the API that you have there. So, but I don't really know for sure about Steem's differences, but obviously the application's different, so there's going to be some differences there, and therefore I would expect new API calls and variations of the JSONs for them, just to support the functionality that PeerPlays has to do.
The idea actually.
Of course.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, go
Perfectly.
ahead.
Yeah.
So what I know is that the people behind Steemit are already thinking about changing the way you talk to the API node, but it's not going to be like breaking changes. It's rather once you connect to an API node, you actually register to a specific API, and technically you have subsystems of APIs, and you can have the legacy subsystems, and then you can have new subsystems, and all of them have them in parallel, running them in parallel. So basically, when you want to add some gaming stuff to the blockchain, what you do is you keep everything as is and add a new API subsystem to which people can register by simply registering to the new subsystem when they connect.
That's a good approach. I'm not going to dispute the architecture of the guys that know a lot more about coding than I do and have more experience with it. But the point is that approach works fine and it's good for expansion. But you end up with a very sprawling, big monster API when you do it that way, as opposed to every now and then going in and refactoring the code so that you unify the things that are in common. But that takes time. So I can see that the approach you're talking about there is a good one.
The approach actually allows a soft handover. Basically, you can tell people, okay, we are now going to change the API and add new calls and stuff like that. And people that don't have the time to change their back-end stuff and front-end stuff right away can still leave and use the legacy API until that is removed from the code.
Now, does this answer any of the questions for you, Fidat, or does it get us into an area where you were kind of talking about?
No, it doesn't. But, well, it certainly gets us into the area. But unfortunately, it doesn't answer the questions. But,
Data, do you know any more about this?
I was just waiting for my 5 seconds break so I could get in here and actually answer it. So the API functions that are being worked on, there are some new functions in regards to the gaming capabilities of the PeerPlays blockchain, and they do follow a similar design to how graphene works now. Now, will that change in the future? Quite possibly. There will be opportunities for optimization and improvement, and we certainly are going to look at that as we continue to scale. So I think, Fidat, you'll be pleased with what you see once we release it.
Well, cool. Glad to hear it.
All right. Any other questions for Data? Or Data, do you have any questions for the community? I mean, that's probably something I should bring up from time to time, huh? Okay, well, it sounds like everything's been covered for the week. Thank you, Data, for showing up, being transparent about this project. To all the people who are listening, who are able to invest in this project, consider that the people who are leading this project are so intent on being transparent with the progress that they are moving forward with and the difficulties that they might run into along the way, because that is the root of trust in an ecosystem, which is kind of like we've said before, the wild, wild west. And a lot of people are out there shouting that they're looking for gold and that they found it. But a lot of people are actually behind the scenes, not always willing to go out and say, all the stuff they're doing. But they might deserve coverage because they are actually not out spending all their effort to shout that they think that they have gold, but they're actually trying to find it. So with that, Data, is there anything that you would like to, any note that you'd like to leave off on, or how can people contact you guys or check out your website or any of that stuff?
Yeah, we provide all the information on how to contact us at peerplays.com. So if anyone's interested in contacting us, we provide all the information there. We're generally all around the Steam. We are available in Steemit with the @PeerPlays username. If you want to check that out, I'll be sure to leave a link in the text box here after I'm done. So we've been around and we're easy to contact. We also have our peerplays.chat space where you can direct message us as also. So that's about it. I don't think there's anything else. We've covered everything, and things are looking good. And I'm really happy to have us for you to have us here as usual, you certainly provide a very valuable service to us here, Fuzzy, and it's always great to have this opportunity to be able to connect to so many people at once every week and give updates. So thank you.
Well, I will say this: the more people who realize that the little things that they can offer to the people who are being transparent about their projects, they comprise Beyond Bitcoin. So never be afraid, to any of you, never be afraid to utilize this platform to help the projects that you believe in, because that's what it's here for. It's not because this isn't Fuzzy's doing everything. It's me trying to make it so we can find a way of helping each other, right? So I don't want anybody to ever forget that, because this is something that I will continue doing, but I would love the people who are part of the BitShares community and crypto community in general, those who are sweating, going and sacrificing blood, sweat, and tears for projects that they really believe in. You are a perfect candidate for Beyond Bitcoin, because that's kind of what we're here to do, is to give credit to those who are really caring about the projects that they think are going to help change the world for the better. So with that said, thank you again, Data. And we're going to move to CM Steam from Gridcoin. CM Steam, are you there?
Hey, can you hear me all right? Yeah.
Perfectly, man. How's
So
everything
great.
going?
These weekly hangouts, they keep everything really, scheduled and stuff. So we're getting quite productive these days with our community. So I've got a few things to discuss, updating previous things I've talked about in like the last hangouts, and a couple of new things. So first off, I'll mention the fact that the 13th Gridcoin community hangout is tomorrow at 9 p.m. GMT. It's basically the same Beyond Bitcoin server, just our own separate channel. And come join us if you want to talk about, BOINC, cryptocurrency, Gridcoin, distributed computing. So everyone's welcome. Moving on, I've got a couple updates regarding the polls that I announced last week. So these polls were whitelist related polls. So there are two new projects that have been voted into the whitelist. These are SRBase and PGU. So these are both mathematics-based distributed computing projects. They'll be getting added to the whitelist within the next day or two. I'll update the website to include it, and they're welcome to join our community. POEM has been voted out of the whitelist. Last week, I let everyone know that this was happening because they have completed their objective. They were a protein folding BOINC project, and they've got all of the research that they needed out of it. So it's sad to see them go, but they are, they've achieved their objective. So moving on, there's 3 new polls in the decentralized voting mechanism in the Gridcoin client. These are, first off, how much Gridcoin should be allocated to the weekly Gridcoin hangouts for distribution. It's kind of like a poll before I submit an official expense, just seeing okay, how much do you think we should distribute to our attendees of the hangout? And it ranges from $50 to $500. So we'll see what people think, we should distribute. So that's a week-long poll. And then after that, I'll, interpret it and put forwards a foundation expense so that we will begin, rewarding people who turn up, they talk, and rewarding Pepperino for his editing work, which is pretty cool. There's another 2 polls. Yeah. So yeah, if anyone turns up, and you talk or do what you do in the Bitcoin Hangouts feature and the Gridcoin Hangouts, you will get given Gridcoin basically. So should the Gridcoin network sponsor the planned BOINC workshop in 2017? So this is a poll to kind of judge what people think. Should we maybe help cover the expenses so that people aren't having to pay for the conference room? This is a planned workshop hackathon next year, and at the moment it's pretty much 90% in favor, so pass pretty much. So we'll get in contact with the lead developers of Boink, and say, is it possible that we can, sponsor you, and, work out how we can go about it, and then, how much we'll sponsor them, as a later thing to discuss. The final discuss mentioned even is which Gridcoin should be. Anyway, no, that's the same as the first one. Never mind. Right. Yeah, I've only got a couple
this is
things.
live and raw for you're not sitting here reading a teleprompter like the people who are in power today. So I think it's fair enough that sometimes this is going to happen.
Totally, I gotta edit my post now. So just mentioning the ongoing discussion regarding Gridcoin and graphene. That's on the BitShares Talk forum and on the CryptoCoin Talk forum. So, just figuring out how we could maybe implement distributed proof of research on the graphene, technology. So maybe that could be something in the future. At the moment, it's just brainstorming, Yeah, so that's pretty much everything that I had to say today. Does anyone have any questions about Boink, about potential Boink projects or Gridcoin or, Project Rain?
I do, but I will wait until somebody else does or doesn't speak up.
Well, I'm going to create a thread for brainstorming Boink projects on Steam again, and summarize what some of the ideas we had in the past were, and hopefully inspire someone to go ahead and create one of these projects, So some of them are really cool. But yeah.
What was the coolest one that you saw in the past ones in terms of the idea?
Well, there was one that was related to BitShares. We were talking about what if you were to distribute, a liquidity bot to volunteers to provide liquidity to certain assets in the BitShares network. Say if you were to distribute a bit of a piece of software to 1,000 users who continually make small transactions, and the difficulty would then be how do you prevent someone from breaking into the the account that's being distributed to them and taking the funds, but it's kind of semantics, and that was quite cool. I think some of the other ones were I said the Apache Spark over Boink and Google TensorFlow. Those are cool. Also, the potential for large decentralized distributed sensor networks. So if you had an earthquake sensor, a Geiger counter, and you're also getting the weather outside, if we had tens of thousands of people doing that, then you could maybe monetize the data and then distribute the raised funds back to the volunteers potentially. I mean, ultimately, it's really easy to make a Boink project if you know PHP, a bit of Python, and then whatever the technology is that you want to distribute. You can create effectively a cloud service without having any of the computing resources to back it. So volunteers will become workers effectively for you.
Well, that's awesome. And, IntelliGuy, the last Hangout, was talking about, as most of you recall, something called Zigbee. And Zigbee, he was talking about smart shelves and smart carts and all those things. I find myself wondering if we're moving toward a day and age where you actually have the smart shelves and all those things are actually, the service for that is provided by the local community. Maybe you have Gridcoin or something like that kind of service with Boink where, you have people actually running some of these smart device services, which wouldn't necessarily just be, Geiger counters, right? Or not Geiger counters, but the ones that you're talking about for earthquakes and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, you could create an open source kit for the project that you want to create, a distributed network of whatever device it is you're distributing. So, someone was saying, what if you had what if you were to make an ISP mesh net and distribute out to all the volunteers, a piece of kit that they would earn, Gridcoin for running. You could do that for a mesh net. You could do it for. There was an idea that Pepperino had. It was an open source phone network or something along those lines, like a VoIP network. So it really is. There's so many possibilities. It'll be interesting to see what people can come up with in the brainstorming thread.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go on to that brainstorming thread and kind of talk about it a little bit more now that I'm aware of it. One thing that I would like to ask you, because of all these different services that you were essentially talking about providing, you're familiar with the term DAC, correct?
Yeah, so it's like a decentralized autonomous company. The thing is that when you create a BOINC project, it is centralized. So if you were to decentralize a BOINC server, then that would become one step closer to a DAC. And potentially, so with Project Rain, there's a few supported cryptocurrency projects that are, the distributed autonomous, the DAO that got, hacked and stuff. There's a few alternatives that have kind of been created that are coming out in the future. Maybe you could tie that in with a BOINC project and distribute a token, to determine who has authority within a BOINC project. But yeah, if we were to say you could maybe use IPFS for the storage. There's also other peer-to-peer storage mechanisms you could use for the BOINC server, but then ultimately breaking it down to a completely decentralized server would be difficult, because maybe like all the volunteers would have to run the server themselves without being able to access like the user credentials and stuff.
Got you.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, it's kind of interesting. Yeah, I wanted to bring it up because this is kind of part of the history of all this stuff, right? And Gridcoin kind of took on that nomenclature for a reason, and I could always see that it was kind of intuitive to the BOINC community that a service provided by a decentralized kind of network of computers could be a kind of a DAC, but I guess you do make a good point, since it's not really decentralized if it's just one server that's running a project. Now, you're obviously also talking about the community must be obviously thinking about this as well, because you're giving some potential solutions that must have come from somewhere. Maybe you are keeping this as a little secret until this very moment, and please, if that's the case,
sorry, you just
please stay so.
What did you say there?
Maybe this has been a secret that you've been keeping this entire time, but it sounds like the community itself is thinking about these problems, or maybe not problems, but thinking about how to decentralize the use of BOINC servers even more.
Yeah, definitely. These are things that we discuss in depth in the Gridcoin Hangouts, and then after the Hangouts, sometimes we'll just talk and go over these ideas, in a non-formal kind of manner. But yeah, we always had kind of the concept of the DAC, like on the website, like, oh, if you've got the ability, the know-how, you could potentially create a commercial BOINC project and then work towards decentralization. But we've just not had the implementation. We're kind of like, we've taken a step towards it, but we're not at the end goal yet. And but it's in sight, hopefully.
Well, you guys have talked a little bit about this, and maybe I'll bring it up a little bit further in the future. But what do you see as the potential upsides to using something like graphene along with BOINC instead of just like a normal proof of work type of scheme or proof of stake type of scheme?
With proof of stake, we've kind of observed low staking participation. So like, people will have their coins in cold storage, or they'll be on an exchange, which is even worse, like a centralized exchange. It's bad practice, but people do it, So potentially, if like we've got low voting participation and low staking participation, we might not have an optimal kind of network security that we should theoretically have with proof of stake. With proof of work, it's just a nightmare. Like the resources, when we originally were a proof of work cryptocurrency, we used script, right? And we found that a lot of the computers that could at BOINC were being pointed at this, useless calculation. And when we did switch over from proof of work to proof of stake, our graphics cards, contribution score and took off exponentially because they were no longer attempting to crunch, script. They were crunching BOINC directly. With distributed proof of stake, with graphene, potentially we could work towards, instead of having to stake in a proof of stake cryptocurrency, where when you stake you get your rewards, the witnesses could provide the neural network in a BOINC statistics like as a data feed to which an automated system would pay out all users like on a daily basis. Because at the moment, it's totally the case that if you don't stake, you don't access your rewards. And currently we have a maximum payout window of 6 months. So if you don't stake for those 6 months, you start losing out on your owed rewards. And it's also like a scalability, concern. If we do ramp up to 50,000 of the 560,000 active BOINC users, that's not out of the question, then we're downloading a lot of resources from the BOINC servers. So that's putting them under an abnormal amount of load. They won't be able to handle it potentially, some of the smaller servers. So witnesses, with it being a bit more centralized, it's taking a lot of that strain off of servers potentially. I mean, this is all theoretical. We're just talking it out. How would this work? How would that work? It's not actually an in development thing at the moment. It's kind of like a requirements and theorizing stage.
So are your thoughts that you guys will come up with kind of an idea of how this would roll out and then bring it to the BOINC community? Is that the thought? Or where are you guys on this?
Well, it's mainly, I'm kind of leading a charge here, with what would be really cool would be if with Project Rain, there's 36 supported currencies, right? So if people from those, cryptocurrency communities would try and implement distributed proof of research on their system. So it wasn't just, the one person attempting to create it on graphene. It's like everyone's attempting to recreate this payout mechanism on their own technology. I really have, a lot of optimism towards free particular kits, graphene, Hyperledger, and recently Disney just came out with this thing called Dragon Chain, and it looks very along the same lines of it's crazy. It's actually it's a pretty legitimate looking project, totally open source.
I'm sure it is.
Like graphene, so these are things that are quite exciting and a lot of possibilities,
So Disney is coming out with their own blockchain technology, which is very much like graphene.
Yeah, they've got 5-second block times as well, so they got to keep an eye on them.
Well, first off, they still don't beat graphene if it's 5 seconds. However, I guarantee you that they will destroy us on marketing.
Potentially.
Is there anything like graphene that exists?
Say that again.
Is there anything like graphene that exists?
I'd say the kits exist, but I wouldn't say that there's actually implementations out there yet.
Because they made their own and they're rolling it out, and what are they using it for? Maybe they're using someone else's code. That's what I'm thinking. But yeah, well, what are they going to use it for? In other words, is what I'm asking.
Well, Disney, I mean, first off, you could probably register everyone that attends Disneyland on a blockchain to make sure that always have a concise, exact knowledge of who's in the park and stuff. I guess just one of a million things.
From what I understand, actually, Disneyland is they have a policy with people being able to use wearable devices to buy and sell within the locations.
The park.
So that's something that might go along with it.
It's not just for the data side of things, it's for the actual spending and tokenization side of things too.
Very much could be.
I understand now. I was just curious.
I can see Disney really wanting to take this too, because I mean, you think about the potential with, whenever you are creating media and art and things that every child grows up watching Disney movies, for God's sake, I mean, there is nothing that I can think of that's more ingrained into people's brains than Disney. So
Nintendo.
it's up there, but I don't know. It's still like a tough one, right? But you think about the fact that, the same aspect that you're bringing out about Nintendo would make them a great candidate for creating their own blockchain.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. I'm glad that you brought that up, CM. I did not know that Disney has. My God, I'm going to have to research this.
Yeah, it's only been in the last few days that they've really come out. It's fully open source now on GitHub, so it's a real competitor. You can create I think they've created 3 different consensus mechanisms that you can pick. But yeah, it's pretty cool. We should
that's actually very interesting.
We should do maybe a hackathon where we do graphene versus Hyperledger versus Dragon Chain. Just try and get some corporate competition going on.
Dude, let's talk about this during the after party. This is not a bad idea. I like the idea, honestly.
Cool, that's good.
Well, does anybody have any questions or comments for Custom or CM's team? Anything Gridcoin related would be, or anything that he's talked about that's somewhat close to relation to Gridcoin. This is the time to do it if you guys have any questions or comments. And I'll also say right now that if anybody here or anybody who is listening, if you are holding Gridcoin and you would, or maybe not, and you're interested in holding Gridcoin and you would like to join in the Hangouts, Custom Miner, you have the Hangouts 9 p.m. UTC every Saturday, correct?
Yeah, totally.
And you are joining these Hangouts, obviously, so people can ask questions or give their own input regarding the various things that are going on in the Gridcoin community, correct?
Yep, exactly. It's just a very similar format to on Bitcoin. If you want to do it official, post a topic you want to suggest, and people will upvote it, and that's how we prioritize what we discuss throughout the show. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that other people are thinking that this model will be cool. We'll see how it works, won't we?
Yeah, definitely.
I always expected that whales who are interested in cryptocurrencies would be more interested in joining up and upvoting these different cryptocurrencies and projects that are related to cryptocurrencies. And that over time, if more cryptocurrencies are doing this, people who represent a cryptocurrency who are in the communities of these various blockchain technologies and cryptocurrencies, if they were to utilize this, the more whales who would be wanting to, attend and look at these Hangouts, and they would be more willing to upvote. A lot of people don't realize that whenever you're going to, the Gridcoin Hangout and posting something, or to the Beyond Bitcoin Hangouts and posting something, that it's a location where a lot of people are voting. So you can kind of get guaranteed payouts just for being transparent about your own project and promoting it. And elsewhere, where can you do that? I can't think of a single other place, a single other kind of hangout where you do that. Most of the time you have to pay, or you have to be, deemed worthy by the person who runs the Hangouts or, the podcast. This is a completely different model, and I urge everybody to consider supporting it if they think that this is something that resonates with them, and if they think that this is at least a step in the right direction for media as we move forward. And I did want to say one thing, Custom Miner, before I ask you to give everybody how they can contact you. It was about the poll. And I remember seeing the poll, and I didn't vote on the poll. And I specifically didn't vote on the poll because I wanted to bring this up to you. And it was that you asked how much money that people think that it'll, that people think would be acceptable, or what they think should be given out. I will be very interested to see what happens with this in terms of the results of the poll. I have a suspicion that it's going to be weighted in the higher range. And I kind of wondered, have you thought about not looking at the denominations in terms of dollars, and just passing out the Gridcoin, like maybe, 5 to 10 Gridcoin, and have a pool where, you'll be able to give this many out, every hangout or something like that. So you can kind of just give out those tokens no matter what price Gridcoin is. I mean, if Gridcoin goes to $20, the people who are attending the hangouts, you might have a lot more people. I mean, have you thought about these different kinds of ways of passing them out, and why did you choose to focus on the dollar amount?
Well, I didn't. It was just really for convenience. Like, how much should we, give out? Yeah, totally. We could in the future switch to, specific Gridcoin denomination. It was just an informal poll. We aren't going to be converting it to US dollar and handing out dollars. It's going to be all in Gridcoin. This is just kind of like a preface poll before I actually put forwards an official, foundation expense. I didn't really feel comfortable like naming my own price, because it's kind of
Sure, that's a good
it kind of
point.
felt greedy. You know what I mean? So putting it to the community is, a more transparent way of people value it or whatever.
Yeah, it's a way of giving the community kind of a choice.
Yeah, totally.
Well, I want to say that I think it's going to be $500, but
That'd be cool.
Let's see where we go with it, I guess, right? And how can people reach out to you guys if they want to participate in the Gridcoin community, or if they want to set up something with their extra computational resources to Boink?
Our official website is gridcoin.us. The official Twitter is Gridcoin Network. My Twitter is Custom Miner. That's all one word. You can follow me on Steam at cm-steam. We're a very active IRC-based community, so find us on hashtag Gridcoin on the Freednode network. So yeah, come along. If you go on the main website, the Gridcoin website, and go to the top where the navigation is, there's a ton of links you can follow to really dig into what Gridcoin is, what Boink is, and the services that are available.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, and we're going to be moving on to next. We have Virtual Growth and Psycho Chica, and they're joining to talk about the Steemprentice and Steamland initiatives. Are you guys there?
That I am, if you can hear me this time.
Perfectly, Virtual Growth. How's it going?
Good. So, I guess. A good day for me is different than a lot of people, but that's beside the point, I guess.
Fair enough. Maybe it isn't beside the point. Maybe it's right on point.
I don't know about that, but anyway.
Fair enough. So, well, I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to hand you the talking stick. Feel free to give everybody a quick synopsis of what these projects are and what you guys, give any updates, and we can go from there.
All right. Well, it's my first time talking, actually, because of numerous things. So I'll just jump right in and start. Well, the main thing was the Steemprentice, which Psycho Chica founded. We're up to over 200 members. It's about 240 now. I was doing a spotlight, which didn't do much on Steam, but recently that got 300 votes, so that did a little better, and that's really increased a lot of people and exposure. I go through and I pick posts from we have a mixture of mentors and mentees, as we call as newer people, and I go through and I pick, of course, some of the better posts so people can see them and thank them, and also the lesser people, so-called the newer people that are learning, so they get more exposure as well to bring them all together. Then I have Steamlands. Nice. All right, and I have Steamland, which I actually paused for the moment and picked everything up. It's in a virtual world. There's been some interest, but with posts going down is not producing Steam dollars and stuff, it's not worth it at this moment. But if I find people interested, I had a few people that submitted artwork to be shown. So we did a little bit of that. We had projects where people could possibly click on things. It's mostly just an alpha experiment and throwing around ideas. If I find a group that wants to do presentations in groups kind of like this, but in a 3D world, then you could do presentations with more pictures, and you can do stuff side by side as opposed to scrolling on a website, which may be advantageous to certain groups. That's just an idea. It is in the world of Wire Grid, which is based on Bitcoin, which is also another cryptocurrency. Somebody asked about using Steem, and that's kind of a possibility in the future. It would have to be done through our own technology. You could do a website and use PHP or something to create a bridge in between. That way you could create an account balance for the Steem and an account balance in the Bitcoin, and then kind of work them together. That can be done somehow. That's just a bunch of thoughts for the future. I'm going to pause for the moment if anybody has any questions.
Does anybody have any questions or comments that they'd like to bring up? This would be the time and place to do so.
Your Steam land, is that like an open sim kind of like hypergrid kind of virtual reality?
It's not in a hypergrid. It's in Wire Grid, which is actually separate. They do that because of security reasons, just a little more security. We could do it in another world called Genesis, which is connected to the hypergrid, potentially, as an option, once interest develops. And there's also Second Life, which has a lot more people.
Be possible to buy, virtual items with Steam or other cryptocurrency in the future, maybe.
That would be an idea. That's why I was thinking Wire Grid, because they're already using Bitcoin. Then users could exchange to Bitcoin, and we could offer a service to exchange Steam for Bitcoin, just to keep it all Bitcoin.
Cool.
Cool.
There hasn't been enough interest to continually explore that at the moment, so it's just kind of picked it up for the moment. And I will make more posts until you see who is generated and stuff, and get it going again in the near future.
Cool. I look forward to that.
Well, you guys were planning on having a virtual Steam Fest as well, correct? Using Wire Grid?
That is an idea. I just don't have community people to start putting that together. I have potential performers. Sure. There are people interested in attending. So I think I'll just continue making posts and generating some more interest. And as the winter approaches, winter is always a better time for virtual worlds. So over the next month, maybe by December, we'll see.
Yeah, it would be cool to see. I mean, now one question that I would have to ask you is, are there ways that people could support the project if they want to? Are there certain posts that you post that maybe the whales in the ecosystem could utilize their upvotes to support it and help you? Maybe pay some of the people who you would need help from to do some of these things.
I agree with all that. The thing that lacks is what direction to go into is what people would want to do. It's kind of a bunch of feelers and nothing's fully connected yet. There's some interest on different levels, but it's all mixed. It's not like concentrated in a direction to start, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, I guess my thinking was more in terms of the Steam Fest. It just seemed like it would be a really good low barrier to entry way of having a Steam Fest that everyone can attend. I always saw these people when Steam Fest first was announced, who were going out and making posts and saying, send me to Steam Fest. And they were some of them would get a lot of money early on, and then, other people didn't get so much. And the thing was that it kind of made you think, maybe that's not what the people in the community are prioritizing right now. And what I've noticed is some of this technology, especially things like Wire Grid, and these, virtual reality or even something as simple as something like Mumble, these types of technology enable low barrier to entry way of communicating, where geography and the money that it takes to physically travel and, stay in a hotel and all that good stuff, it kind of no longer is something that is needed, right? So we could then, the people who are part of that community can start focusing on the direction without having to necessarily meet in a physical location with all of the constraints that entails.
It is a low barrier, as is Mumble, but they're both still a barrier. A lot of people aren't familiar with it. Some people aren't comfortable with it. So it's just a matter of finding the people that do have the right interests. Otherwise, some people here may or may have not seen my poker posts. I'm playing poker for votes and paying people a percentage of the profits as a different way to monetize myself with what I like to do.
Have you won any money yet?
A little bit. It's still in the negative, but with the votes, it's positive. And then eventually, I made 18th in one tournament, which was almost a final table, and that's what really will be a bigger payout for everybody.
So you haven't made anybody cry yet?
No, I haven't made anybody cry, not even myself.
Well, that's fair.
It's nothing to cry about.
Well, out of curiosity, is there anything in particular that you think is something that the community should be focusing on? You're doing this Steam Spotlight, right?
Yes, I do the Steam Spotlight.
Are there things that you think that, or people in different projects that you think in the ecosystem should get a little bit more coverage or should be recognized a little bit more?
And a lot of things to be recognized, but how do you bridge all these things that we're dealing with? Are all top down. Steam itself is top down. The values, witnesses, mining. But some of these things have to be top down. But the problem is how do you bring the down up? All these new people are stranglers and they fall off. They don't have the value. They post, they get a penny. And then they go, Mumble, what's that? Wire Grid, what's that? What are all these things? And then they get Steam, and then they got to go to an exchange and get Bitcoin. Then they got to get US dollars. And it's all all sorts of they could be lower barriers, but they're all a bunch of low barriers, which turns into a medium barrier and so on.
And a medium barrier is too much.
Exactly.
Let's just face it.
Exactly.
That's very good points that you're making, man. Please continue. Sorry.
Hey, that's no problem. I mean, myself, I haven't talked much. I just as a brief, some people know, last year I got meningitis, so I deal with tinnitus. My ears ring at night and in the morning, so I only get so much sleep. But I'm an Eagle Scout. I have a drive. I'm intelligent, very fortunately. So, I mean, I'd really like to see decentralized things more, but we have a lot to learn to get to that point, of course.
What are your thoughts? This is something that I really take into consideration quite a bit is whenever people are powering down, right? And I'm a whale. I'm not a huge whale like some of these people, but I mean, I'm a big enough whale that it's noticeable for me. And what I notice is that as a whale with all this steam power, when I'm powering down, I'm actually still ending up with more steam at the end of the day or at the end of every week than I'm powering down. And I find myself thinking that all kinds of witnesses and other people who have a large amount of steam power are in a very similar position. So my thoughts were, what if you could power down by a percentage instead of just a full power down? And B, what if the ecosystem, whenever you were powering down, considered you kind of at like half power? So you're not getting the full, how do I say this? You're not getting the full amount of protection from dilution, like the 90% protection from dilution that you get when you're simply powering up. What are your thoughts on that?
I think
you're somebody
actually
who thinks about a lot of stuff in this ecosystem, so.
I'm a thinker. That's what I am more than anything. As far as the powering down, people should just be able to power down without penalty because that's just the way it should be. But people should. The problem is powering down and still earning more steam. is a problem that's already in place. You shouldn't be able to power down and still be earning more. That's towards a deflationary model.
Yeah, that's kind of how it works. Though what I mean by that is, as new Steam dollars are printed, right? They're backed by the amount of Steam that's in Steam Power. So 9 for every one Steam that's made, 9 Steam are distributed to people who are powered up in the ecosystem. And that's what it's at when 90% of the Steam is powered up. So what happens is, if I hold 100,000 Steam, I'm going to be getting a portion of every 10 Steam that's ever created. And that's going to essentially, even though it's expected that the number of Steam that will exist after 1 year will double, maybe I won't have 200% Steam, but I will have 190%. Do you see what I mean with that?
Yeah, I haven't done all the numbers because I'm only a little minimal.
Sure. Yeah, but, no, I'm just, but with that said, like you said, that's kind of the reason why you see when people are powering down, some of them end up having more Steam at the end of the week. Now, they might not have percentage-wise more Steam in the entire ecosystem, but like they're a little bit of their buying power of that pie is being taken away. But I find myself thinking, all of these whales, as they're powering down, they're always selling it onto the market, and they're not working together in any way, shape, or form to sell it. They're just dumping it whenever they want to. And that kind of creates constant downward pressure. So I'm just kind of thinking, what are the thoughts behind, for me, it was, well, just make it so instead of 190% that they'll have at the end of the year, if they're powering down for an entire year, they only get 150% of what they had at the end of the year. Like they lose half of their dilution protection, maybe, as those Steam, so for every one Steam that's created, that's given out to people, there's 9 that go into other people's pockets, but maybe 4.5% goes into, or 4.5 of them go into the pockets of the individuals who are powering down, as opposed to 9 Steam, right? Do you see where I'm going with that?
Yes, but it doesn't really matter because the Steam doubles, so you're either going a half of one direction or 2 in the other. But when your voting power is exponential, it's a whole nother matter. It's actually minor. And as far as the dumping, well, it's not dumping, it's just selling, and there's just nobody to buy it. So it just falls. There's no support. The resistance and support is non-existent.
I find myself thinking that it could be a naturally resolving thing. Like, for instance, it might get to the point where Steam is 1 penny each. So becoming
none of it's natural. It's all created differently. That's part of the problem. It's a free market. It'll just move freely.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like, so for instance, maybe
I know what you mean.
This dumping just goes on until Steam gets to the point where everybody thinks that, being a whale isn't so hard to become one now.
Yeah, that may happen eventually. I mean, it'll all be sold off cheap. It'll get cheaper and cheaper. Then other people will get it. And then we're not earning Steam dollars on post now, but we're earning Steam. So the minnows will start accelerating. So you have a decelerating and accelerating.
That's a good point.
So you'll have.
Maybe it's something that doesn't need to be fixed.
No, it'll balance out. Dan knows this. Dan and Ned. It's just a matter of.
I wondered if I see that as one perspective. I kind of wanted to see what other people like, and you were one of them, because I know you sit here in Steam ecosystem, and you're a busy guy in the Steam ecosystem. I figured you might have some input and some thoughts on this topic. So Thank you. I didn't want to take too much of the discussion, but it did turn into a lot more than was expected. Does anybody have any questions for virtual growth?
As far as earning Steam, it's a matter of just earn the Steam dollars, the Steam or Steam power, whatever works for you, and whatever you do with your talents and skills. Essentially, everybody is approaching it at different avenues. Economics is always going to be lopsided in the beginning. The world economics, any economic system that uses interest, which is this one, will destroy itself in 30 cycles.
Yeah.
Which is another problem in and of itself.
In 30 cycles. That's interesting. Say that again.
A economic system that uses interest to destroy itself in 30 cycles. Who knows what those cycles are?
And what is a cycle? Oh, okay. So you're saying like that there's a natural cycle that you'd have to kind of establish.
You'd have to learn all sorts of different stuff to get to that point. I've read all sorts of papers on it and whatnot.
Very
Actually, somebody presented a paper to a House that somebody Republicans in Congress were at, and of course they kind of listen to them and say, oh, you're right, but they do absolutely nothing about it. Just so it's the mindset of people.
One thing I've noticed, I haven't been posting over the last couple of weeks very much, or even curating all that much, but I've been looking at my wallet balance in Steam and noticed that almost everything except for the account summary balance has been going up. The number of Steam dollars I have, Steam power, everything is going up very slowly. But and so there's some interest accruing even without much activity going on. And so if you're at the level of a whale, I would think that would be pretty pronounced.
Yeah. So how it works is, even though it looks like my balance is going up, it actually is technically going down in the aggregate, as opposed because I'm only getting 90% inflation protection, which means that 10% of the inflation is going to hit me. But that's going to make my accounts, the number of tokens, it's going to make them go lower in price. And, obviously.
Yeah, inflation is actually effectively exported from larger accounts. It's an interesting idea.
Yeah, and I started thinking about, well, what if we burn Steam then? And actually the interesting thing is the mechanism where it kind of reverse splits does kind of do that,
Yeah, Steam does need burns. Effectively, burns will increase the economy depending on what we can do with burns, essentially. It's kind of a whole open idea at the moment, except for advertising to null, I think is one of the examples.
To null? Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. The promotion?
Yeah, the promotion account.
Yeah, it is very interesting. Brindle Swan says N to the 1.1, and I still think that's a good point, Brindle.
That's a huge point. The N factor is way too big currently.
Yeah, I wish we had Dan here to comment on that.
I'm sure we all do.
You guys can always reach out to Ned and them and say they should come on. I mean, this is something that I think will eventually happen when Steam gets low enough that nobody's asking them to come on their shows anymore. But it's something I think is important that the community has to reach out. I can reach out to them, but if there's nobody else who's saying, hey, we need to frequently be able to talk about this stuff, and our community wants to talk about it. There's a lot of people here who pay a lot of attention to what's going on, and you have valuable things to say. So I'm
going to say something in a minute. As far as the N2 can be okay in the long term. If you look at Fuzzy versus Tom and what they both said, the Fuzzy is going down because he doesn't have protection, and Tom is gaining without doing anything because he has intrinsic value that he is receiving from what he's already accumulated. And they're both approaching a middle point or a middle ground, although we don't know exactly what that is.
Well, I hate to interrupt you on this one, but I actually meant that it's the same with his too. He's getting 90% inflation protection, which makes the tokens that he has, the number of them of steam power, go up. But in the aggregate, in terms of like everybody, in terms of the total supply, right? Which gives you what? Voting power. In terms of that, you actually are losing 10%, even when you have it powered up.
You know, I know what you're saying, Fuzzy, but on the other hand, because this is more of a free market than other systems, other economic systems, I wonder how much that inflation is a factor compared to the ups and downs and volatility of the free market impact that it has on the ecosystem.
What do you mean by the free market impact?
Well, there's variation in the value of Steam, and because of the fact that we're running in a free market, that value changes depending on how people are using the economy. So that can kind of swamp out, if you will, or minimize the impact of inflation if the level of inflation is small compared to the volatility jumps of the free market variations.
Yeah, the market volatility is greater than inflation, therefore the inflation isn't as much of a factor in that sense. And smaller people can.
That's what I'm saying. Yes, exactly.
And smaller people actually, when they do stuff, they earn more steam at a higher percentage in their overall, so they can actually correct it more easily than a whale can with less work, which is probably another built-in natural mechanism.
So I got a quick question. Could we say that it's because the pricing of the content has been that ability has been given to a few that's really creating the problems on the platform?
That is related to people's resources, and I agree.
I would agree.
When you have more followers, when you have marketing, that's why when I work with Steemprentice, what we try to do is help people accumulate those various skills, which people on here, at the average, you have a lot more skills than these lesser people, which is a good thing. That's what gets us here and wanting to reach up more. It's the reaching that gets us anywhere.
I see. So let me kind of rephrase that, because it makes it it's not so much the problem that because it's a new pricing model, right? Where upvoting is the thing that allows you to make, quote unquote, the value. That's not a problem. I think the problem is that the people who are whales aren't professionals in that, right? They're just voting for things that they feel like they want. They're not really voting in a way where like they're Steemit employees who are specifically hired to go out there and pick, the actual content that's going to one, making meaning on the platform, and two, allowing people to actually extract the value from that meaning that they're presenting. So it's really, that's the problem, that the people who actually have the power price aren't really doing it in a way where adoption is growing. And so I don't know if distributing that power will necessarily fix the business model of the blockchain, of the Steem blockchain, but it's certainly in my opinion, and I guess a lot of other people's opinion, it would certainly be a better way of kind of seeing how that model works, because it's new, seeing how that model works on that platform.
Well, my guess is that the founders of Steem wanted to ensure that the platform's integrity would remain high. They wanted to have some control over the nature of the content, which in many respects, in philosophical respects, that's a problem in and of itself. Because if you want the free market to exercise what's going to become popular, what's going to be the best paid content that's going to grab attention, then you kind of have to step back and say, well, let's let the free market decide. Let's not let me control it.
It's going in a direction it kind of has to, because if we had it too bottom level, there'd be too much spam, and it actually reduces spam. And as far as reaching up to whales, like Fuzzy says about talking to people and working together, when you work with whales, some of them do support different projects. And of course, the interests, talents, and stuff that I mentioned at the bottom, it's the same thing from the top. and it's all going to meddle together. And go ahead and extend on that, everybody by yourselves.
Well, this is the idea behind creation guilds. And kind of to get to what Virtual Growth was saying, it really comes down to the tools that are available to us, right? Communities have an interesting number of experts in weird different things, you know. Hold on a second. You never know what kind of experts are going to be in a community with you, right? Until you kind of open up and start asking. And then you'll start finding that there are a lot of people who are capable, they just don't have the resources. So there might be a tool that enables you to, for instance, Solly, I think that you would be the perfect person to be able to upvote people's video work, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. That's
so
exactly
I give you
what
some proxy voting power.
Right.
You know,
Because
what I mean?
that's
I'm going to give Solly 10%.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I'm trying to get at. It's not the problem is not that a few have the it's that the few don't understand what makes Steam it valuable long term.
I think yes, that's something that to a degree you're 100% right, because a lot of people don't understand Steam yet, right? Like Steam is still so young. It's still so young, man. So whenever you have Steam as something that we're talking about, you might understand a lot of these things, but a lot of people don't understand them yet. And that means that we have a ways to go. And even though some people are starting to build some of the tools that Steam is going to need to enable these things, there's still, it's still early on.
I just hope that they figure something out soon.
Yeah.
And it's good that we're having these. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I would love if they figured it out soon.
No,
as soon as possible.
Let me ask this. Now, I'm not plugged in with Steam Chat. I've been there once or twice, but I don't hang out there. How many other venues? I mean, there's all kinds of venues that have sprung up as a result of Steam, of people that are congregating together and discussing these types of things. So how many other venues similar to this on TeamSpeak, for example, or someplace else, are they discussing these kind of things where Ted and Dan may be involved more actively than they are here?
I was on TeamSpeak for the first time yesterday, and I saw that Ned is a moderator or something there. I don't know if he was on, but Versticken was basically putting someone down because they didn't have very much, their account wasn't valued very much. So he was like, you're not qualified to have a financial opinion. But it looks interesting, TeamSpeak. I didn't hang out for very long there.
Well, see, that tells me that there's probably some activity going on similar to this thread, this particular thread we're talking about here, of how we can improve Steam and make sure that that the thrust of it is actually to improve the content, et cetera, et cetera. Other venues are probably exploring that as much, if not more, than we are here. So if we're at this level in this conversation, then can you imagine these other venues where people are actually a little more plugged into the Steam thing than what we might be here?
Yeah, absolutely. I've even read some excellent articles this last week on people giving great suggestions that I think could absolutely take Steam it in the right direction. Because I think a lot of people forget that Ned and Dan kind of say it a lot. It was an experiment from the very, very beginning. They didn't go into this knowing exactly what the business model was going to turn out. They just knew that they had a pathway to getting a mainstream audience that could probably work. And it certainly did in certain respects. But now they're coming up on what most startups come up on, growing pains, things that aren't working. And so you have to do what we all do, and that's pivot. You got to pivot to something that's working.
One question here, and this is, well, I won't even go into the question, actually. So it's more of just calling on Virtual Growth, because Virtual Growth is one of the community members who's here who who spends a lot of time thinking about stuff in this community and what's going on, and he's very, very plugged in. I would actually say, Virtual, you might be one of the most plugged in people in Steam, you and Psycho Chica. But what are your
just for a moment?
Are there any closing thoughts on this stuff?
Just one mention is a Steam. It is a Steam podcast, which is done by a group of people, including Psycho Chico and Quantum Anomaly and Gifted Gaia. They're a small community in Missouri, I believe it is. They get together and they go through posts and they just talk about stuff freely. And there's a bunch of minnows that hang out and just talk, which is interesting. And then you have Frickenstein and stuff, and definitely you have Steam Speak, and that's a higher level of minnows and dolphins and such. And then you have us. We're all different groups. But like a lot of people are saying is, how can we all reach together to go on the same path? Because we're all on paths in different directions trying to look for something, and we can't find our common ground, so to speak.
Yeah, we kind of need some leadership that can look at all these variations of people and groups that are going on and pick common threads where we can work together to achieve a common good.
I'll say this.
But
there are a lot of things that we could talk about here, but it's a little bit past for Virtual Growth. Sorry, Virtual Growth. Your discussion opened up so much, so I have to step in.
That's what it's all about. Community. Go for it.
Yes, of course. But I have to come in as the big bad moderator and just say we have to cut it a little bit. I don't even want to say short because it's not cutting it short. We'll cut it long this time, and we'll move on.
That's fine.
With the next segment.
Continue on.
Of course. But I do want to say, if anybody wants to contact you, how do they go about doing so?
You can find me on the Steemit chat, and that's the best way. Just go through this steemit.chat.
And you are Virtual Growth, just as it would traditionally be spelled. All one word.
Yeah, also Virtual Growth on Gmail. If you want to email me, feel free.
Sounds good. Okay, well, next in line today is going to be Solomon Atticale, who has spoken up a little bit prior and was talking about some things. Now, he is here to talk about SollarsAndSense and to give some updates and to talk about just some basic thoughts on his side on what SollarsAndSense should do and where he's going with it, and kind of get that transparency out to the community who is going to be supporting the project. So, Solomon, are you able to speak up real quick if I hand off that talking stick to you?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, here you go, buddy. I'm going to toss it to you. Now make sure not to drop it.
I got it. First and foremost, I want to say I'm from Chicago, so go Chicago Cubs. We're in the World Series right now. We're going to make it happen this weekend, and that's really awesome that we're able to do that. Hell yeah, go Cubs, baby. I've been a Cubs fan since I was 4 years old. I love that team, and it's good to see our boys in the World Series. But yeah, stepping onto the project, two things I really want to talk about this week with the project is one, our experience with the MVP version of our mobile app and testing that with some women. And then two, I want to go into detail about a specific content creator demographic that we'll be appealing to right away to get our platform going. So starting with the MVP. So we got our mobile MVP in the hand of some girls because a big demographic we're actually going to try to appeal to in terms of content creator are women. There's a lot of women that have a lot of big audiences on platforms like YouTube and Vimeo that could easily be monetizable. And women love to spend money. The statistics are out there. They spend way more money than men do, and I think they could be a huge boon to our platform once that launches and all that good stuff. So just to reiterate, Sollywood TV is the marketplace for which SollarsAndSense will be introduced Two, if the easiest way to think of it is like Steem It with Steem. Steem It is the way that people were introduced to the Steem tokens and Steam Power and all those other various things. So for us, Sollywood TV is actually geared towards the visual content creators. We kind of sell it as a marketplace for content and content services at the right price, whether that price is 3 cents, half a penny, $7.99, whatever. What we do is we partner with various types of content creators that have various types of experiences. We partner with them to showcase what they have at a price point that majority of people will actually pay. There is not a platform out there that is doing that right now, and we plan to provide that value through our token, SollarsAndSense. Now, as I announced last week, we're planning on actually building a blockchain out, and the crowd sale will hopefully happen next year, Q1, hopefully February or a little bit after that, but we'll see how that goes. We're still in the talks. We're still trying to figure all those elements out. And as soon as that information, then obviously we'll make that public. But yeah, we actually were able to get our mobile, which is an iOS app. We were able to have some girls test it out, see how they felt about it, and I'm happy to to announce that they really enjoyed the app in terms of how simple it was. So in explaining, I'll say that we have 2 feeds through the app. You've got the home feed and then you have the discover feed. That is the MVP function of the actual application. Everything else is just complementary. But those 2 functions, the home feed and the discovery feed, is really the selling of the app. And so what the home feed does is it allows content. So you set your interests, like I like crime, I like beauty, I like fashion, I like whatever. Once you set that interest, what the home feed does is it allows content from the platform to be tailored made and come through that home feed straight to you. So if you like crime, if you like whatever, you'll have those different pieces of content come through that feed. Yeah. So Fuzzy, if you liked crime and those that we would, and that's another thing, we would be able to know, okay, a majority of our platform likes crime, so we should probably go out there and try to partner with people who are making crime shit and partner with them to get their content, price it correctly, and then shoot that through our platform. But yeah, the women who tested out the app, they loved it. They liked how simple it was, that you can just open the app, set your interest, and then have those different pieces of content come through with, of course, different prices. But they got the pricing aspect in the sense that, okay, yeah, if something from Netflix comes in or comes through that feed, obviously I have to be subscribed to Netflix. If something from Fuzzy comes through that feed, obviously I can either choose to subscribe to what he's doing, or if he has a film, I can purchase it, and then that goes into my watch list or my library, or et cetera, et cetera. But the cool thing was just having these women be able to use it and then actually be okay with it, because you never know, right? Guys are easy. Guys, that's the easy part, but the women are always the hard part. And so it was cool to test it with them and get a positive response.
So out of curiosity, whenever I go and I say I want to watch a bunch of crime, now is that going to be because the content creator actually tagged it with that tag? Yeah.
So when we partner with content creators, they're able to choose 3 genres to go with whatever. So you're basically one or 2 types. You're basically a filmmaker type, where you make single video content, which is a movie or whatever. It's just a single video that has a single price. Or you're a subscription type of service. So the simple version of subscriptions are YouTube channels where, they have a huge subscriber base. And for our platform though, you have to set a price for your channel. Whereas on YouTube, you monetize by ads. And we'll talk about that very soon, because that's the content creator type spotlight we want to talk about. But the simple version of the subscription service is the YouTube type content creator. The more complex version of that is the Netflix, is the Amazon Prime, is the Hulu Plus. Those are the very complicated versions of subscription type services. But subscription is simply having a price for everything that you present, having one price for everything that you present. So those are the two basic types of content creators we can start to appeal to.
Now, how do you appeal to each of those with the same platform?
Right. Well, so the one thing that everybody has to remember is that in this day and age, it really doesn't matter what content you're making. No one cares. What people care about is what price you're selling it at. So for us, obviously, we have to build the functionality that can showcase a subscription service or that can showcase a single piece of content. But the real crucial value comes in what is that content being priced at? Because if it's not being priced at a price point that majority of people will actually pay, then our platform means nothing. Our platform does not have value. You see what I'm trying to say? So sure. Yeah, in that sense, content create we won't be starting with the Netflix. Obviously, we won't be starting with the Netflixes and all the big guys. They don't really need us right now. We'll be starting with millennials. So content creators you see on YouTube, content creators who make content on the Vimeos or film festivals or Kickstarter. Those kinds of films is who we start with, because one, that's the future. In 10 years, they're going to be running Hollywood, right? In 10, 15 years, these are the guys that are going to be running Hollywood. So it may not sound like everything. Exactly. They're the ones who are going to be running every single thing. So if we get them in now and we build that relationship with them now, then again, we can go wherever we need to. But you have to start somewhere. So for us, that's where we'll be starting.
Sure. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, if I could move on to the second point. If there's no questions with that, I'd like to move on to the second point.
Of course. So
the second topic that I wanted to talk about, because I think it's relevant to understanding why, or because everyone's talking about Steam and how Steam is, the price has gone down, this and that. So I think it's really relevant for us to kind of explain a specific content creator type and how our platform, Sollywood TV, would provide value for that content creator. So this is like a spotlight on that content creator. So I call this content creator the YouTuber. That's the easy way to explain that content creator demographic. And so the YouTuber is very straightforward. YouTubers are people who have a channel, who create content and have a subscriber base. So the subscriber subscribes to that content creator and watches everything or anything that content creator produces. Now, it's very crucial to understand this, because we're going to get into numbers. As a YouTuber or somebody who has a subscription channel or uses ads to monetize their audience, you have to understand this. To make 4 cents, I'm talking about 4 cents from one subscriber, you would have to make one video for 30 days. You would have to make one video every single day. Just to make 4 cents, you would have to make one video every day for 30 days and have an ad play against that video, just to make 4 cents from one of your subscribers.
That's a lot.
Right. Remember, 30 videos for 30 days, because YouTube pays. Yeah, it's a ton of work. That's an insane amount of work. And so, because YouTube pays their content creators 0.001 of a cent for every ad that their subscriber watches. So that's how much YouTube pay. And remember, that's before they take their 55 to 65%. Sure. So knowing that, because 30 videos in 30 days, no content creator can do that. No content creator can do that at all.
Yeah. Not with any quality.
Exactly. Now, there's no way to do that, to create that kind, and it's not even worth it. So doesn't it make a lot more sense to charge each one of your subscribers 5 cents a month 5 cents a month and be able to make 3 to 6, maybe a little more content every month
videos.
and make 80% of what your of anything that comes in for your content. That's essentially what our model is. That's essentially what Sollywood TV is with SollarsAndSense. It allows these content creators that cannot make enough with YouTube, with that YouTube model, it allows them to bypass all the nonsense of ad-supported content and simply charge their subscriber base a price point that works. Come on, that 60 cents a month, a year for a YouTube channel. You think YouTubers won't jump on that opportunity, especially if you're getting paid 80% of what comes in? On YouTube, you're making 35 to 45%. If you're lucky, you're making 50%. If you're one of these big content creators like PewDiePie or Phil DeFranco and all of them, you know? So that's essentially the difference between the two models, where with ad-supported content, you can barely make 4 cents on each of your subscribers. With our platform, you can charge 5 cents, even more if you need to, but I would start low because there's no reason to up your price if you're getting the value that you need to continue what you're doing. So for me, we would encourage a lot of these content creators that get the value of our platform. We would actually encourage them to keep their price low first. And then as you start to build your value, then we can talk about increasing your price
and stuff.
Exactly. You increase that following, you increase your value, then we can talk about increasing that price. But start low. As long as you're getting more value than you would get on YouTube, which majority of content creators on YouTube who have big channels would get much more value with our platform than they would with YouTube. And that includes the women. And that's why I brought up the women, because there are huge beauty channels on YouTube that would absolutely love a platform like this where they can monetize that female demographic, because women spend money. And if this is something that is really promoted through
it's true. I mean, the ladies are the ones who spend the money. The guys are the ones who tinker with stuff all day.
Exactly. So we cannot ignore the female demographic, and we certainly won't. So I just wanted to put a spotlight on one kind of content creator who actually needs our platform today. And there are more, but I'm going to use other weeks to kind of talk about that as as the project becomes more, as we start our promotion and stuff like that. I've also got an article that explains this that'll be going up on Steam going into November.
Nice. Well, make sure to put on the Beyond Bitcoin tag so I see it and so all the people who pay attention to it see it, because there are a lot of good writers there too who are actually always looking for stuff to cover and keep up to date on in the crypto sphere.
Absolutely. We like I said, there's a lot of moving parts right now because we're actually trying to build the blockchain team, so things are coming together. But as soon as things are more more formalized, then we'll start that campaign to kind of show people we're here. We're building an awesome website for the Sollywood TV platform, and obviously we'll have a website for Sollars.com. But the Sollywood TV website is very consumer friendly. It gets to the point of why our marketplace makes sense, and I'm really excited with the direction that we've decided to go. It's just at this point now, it's just doing the work to get these elements out there.
Well, I look forward to hearing more about it, and I'd like to ask right now, this is a good time for anybody who might have something to bring up. If they would like to ask Solly anything in particular, this would be a good time to do so.
How is your team building effort coming along there, Solly?
Well, it's certainly coming along. We have developer interest, more on the, obviously we're working with an actual development team here in Chicago, and they've been helping us get that MVP proof of concept up with the Sollywood TV platform. But now we have to kind of figure out the blockchain aspect, which we have some developers who are interested in helping us take that now that we're actually doing a second crowd sale. I can't say that we've reached out too much on the business development side, but we're going to start that in November. We're still in conversations with what exactly we need in terms of bolstering that aspect, because it can't be something where I'm doing everything, but we also want to work with people who actually bring value to the project and don't just see the value in, hey, I can benefit from another crowd sale and not really bring any value to what we're doing. So we're still in the process of getting that side. But certainly on the technical side, surprisingly on the technical side, we have a lot of interest. But I think on the business side, we have to do more on the business side in terms of like getting a community manager who would, if we were to do our own kind of stuff, like having a Slack channel and stuff like that, making sure we have people who can kind of manage the community that would grow from a mainstream project like this.
Well, I look forward to seeing more of this stuff as it unfolds, and I know that you'll let people know what's going on. Did that answer your question, Tom?
Yeah, that's fine.
It was a very good question. I think I saw somebody unmute themselves. Was there somebody else who wanted to speak up? All right. Well, Solly, is there anything that you think that we should cover that we haven't covered for today?
No, those were the only two things that I kind of wanted to cover just for today, because, last thing I want to do is take up people's time. I know a lot of people have a lot of things that are going on. So for me, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the female aspect, and then, the kind of content creator who actually needs this platform, who would love to jump on something like this. Because, again, for me, looking at Steam and seeing the price go up and then come down, if we're going to say, hey, we can do what Steam did and have staying power, where people are going to ask, well, how are you going to do the same thing and then not come back down? And so it's always been, well, you got to have utility. You have to have a real purpose for why you're building some of the tools. And like I said, Steam started out as an experiment, so you have to give them time to pivot wherever they need to and figure out that business model. But we're not starting as an experiment with no data behind who would actually need a platform like this. There are if you go on YouTube, the big name content creators and the content creators with sufficient audiences, like, they're complaining about demonetization, about all these aspects of YouTube that are no longer working for their platform or for their audience. And they would gladly take a solution like Sollywood TV that allows them to extract value in a new way and actually sustain themselves. So I kind of just wanted to talk about those two things, and I feel like I got that out.
Well, it's important that people recognize the value of the use cases of the blockchain as we cover them in these Hangouts. We have people who are joining up who are like Solly, who are, masters in their own fields and are wanting to utilize blockchain technology to take it to the next level. And this is not an easy space to exist in, because it's changing every 5 seconds. It seems like, another chain is coming out, many of which are purporting changes and upgrades that no other chain before them have ever, been capable of. Most oftentimes that's a total fabrication, however. So, when you actually have people who are looking to innovate, this is a risky sphere in general, but the people who are willing to innovate and trying to innovate, and in addition to that attempt to innovate and create something new and valuable, they're teaching others and being transparent about the path that they're taking. It really is a standard that I think is important to set. So I cannot thank the people who join these Hangouts enough for offering that to the community and for the listeners who support this, what we call Beyond Bitcoin. So I just want to, thank you, Solly, for joining up again this week. And just so all of you all know, there's always a room for the people who start out in Beyond Bitcoin. The guest speakers, if you guys want to have your own rooms to run your own Hangouts, or to have a community manager who runs your own Hangouts, I will gladly support these, especially if you post them to places like Steam or SollarsAndSense, where I can support them. I will, as a Beyond Bitcoin representative. And I would urge all other Beyond Bitcoin representatives and volunteers and community members to consider utilizing all these chains to support one another's efforts. It's really something that if we take the time to just do those little things, and we get the tools built that are needed to be built, I really don't see how we lose. So thank you, everybody.
La 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 la.